Hi everyone, welcome to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is on dividing a polynomial by a polynomial. Sometimes this method that we use is also referred to as long division in algebra. So here is how you would do this example. So say you're asked to divide x squared plus 4x to the 4 minus 2 by 1 plus x. So what you're going to do first, so as you can see, you've got a polynomial and a polynomial, okay? So what you're going to do first is you're going to rearrange the equation so that you've got it in from highest to lowest degrees, okay? So the highest powers come first, and then if you notice any missing powers, you're going to fill those in with a 0. So you're going to put in a placeholder. So we're going to rewrite it. So it's going to become 4x to the 4 plus 0x cubed plus x squared plus 0x minus 2. So I put these two in over here as placeholders. And you only have to do that when you're dividing polynomials by polynomials. Okay, so once you do that, you're going to set up a long division type scenario. So you're going to do x plus 1, and you're going to divide that into, because you're dividing this by this, divide it into 4x to the 4 plus 0x3 plus x squared plus 0x minus 2. Okay. Now, what we do first is we do this just like division. So you figure out first, how many times does x divide into 4x to the 4? And the answer is 4x cubed. And then what you do then is you take 4x cubed and multiply by both of these terms. So that becomes 4x to the 4 plus 4x cubed. And then you subtract. So then when you subtract these, you get 4x squared to the 4 minus 4x squared is 0, and then 0x cubed minus 4x cubed is going to give us negative 4x cubed. And then what you're going to do is you're actually going to bring down this value. So that's going to become x squared, okay? And actually, you can bring down everything, so plus 0x minus 2. Now, at this point, you say, how many times does x go into negative 4x cubed? So the answer to that would be negative 4x squared. So now you take that number and you multiply it by both of these. So when you do that, you get negative, so 4x, okay, it's not negative, just 1 second. So you get 4x cubed minus 4x squared. And then you subtract again. So when you subtract these two, you end up with 0. And when you do x squared minus negative 4x, you end up with 5x squared. And then at that point, again, you would just bring down these two from here. So 0x minus 2. So now you think, how many times does x go into 5x squared? And the answer would be 5x times. So then you take 5x and you multiply by x and by 1. So you get 5x squared plus 5x, and then you subtract again. So these would give 0, and then 0 minus 5 would give negative 5x, and then you would bring down the negative 2. And then you would say, how many times does x go into negative 5x? And the answer would be negative 5, and then you would multiply negative 5 by x and by 1, so you would get negative 5x minus 1, and then you would subtract that. And when you subtract that, you get 0, and then you get negative 2 plus 1, which will give you, sorry, I did something wrong here. This part should be a 5. That's 5. So we did 5x plus, negative 5. So then when you subtract that, you get 0, and then negative 2 plus 5 will give you 3 as a remainder. Okay, so we just solved it. So we can write our final answer as the following. You could write your answer as, the answer to this would be this right here, and then with a remainder of 3. Or you could write it as in this way. You may see the answer in either form. 4x cubed minus 4x squared plus 5x minus 5 plus, and then 3 over, and then you're going to put it over whatever you have here, whatever you're dividing by, so 1 plus x. So you would write the remainder with your answer, and you would write it as 3 over what your divisor is. Okay, so that's how you would solve something like that. We can do one more example. I'm going to do one where we've got, let's do one more example. This one's a little bit more complicated. So you have x to the 4 minus 5x cubed plus 9x squared minus 7x plus 2, and you're dividing it by, the question says divide this by x squared minus 3x plus 2. Okay, so here we go. Now in this case, we've got a placeholder everywhere, so we don't need to fill in any zeros because we've got x4, x3, x2. Like from our highest power onward, there's always something in each following exponent. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write it down. X to the 4 minus 5x cubed plus 9x squared minus 7x plus 2. Okay, and then we're dividing it by x squared minus 3x plus 2. So we're going to start it in exactly the same way as the other question. So how many times does x squared go into x4? X squared times. And I take this and I multiply this by all 3 of these. So when I do that, I get x to the 4 minus 3x cubed plus 2x squared, and then I subtract. So when I do that, I get negative 5 plus 3, so that becomes negative 2x cubed, and then 9 minus 2 becomes 7x squared. And then at that point, I can go ahead and bring these down, so this becomes negative 7 plus 2. So then at this point, we think of how many times does x squared go into negative 2x cubed? Well, it goes in negative 2x times. So then we take negative 2x and we multiply by all 3 of these. Okay? So we're going to multiply by all 3. So that becomes negative 2x cubed plus 6x squared, and then negative 2 times 2 is going to be negative 4x. And then we subtract. So at this point, these two cancel. 7 minus 6x squared is x squared. Negative 7 plus 4 is going to be negative 3x. And then we can bring down the positive 2. And then how many times does x squared go into x squared? Well, as you see, these are actually the same expression. So this goes into this one time. So plus 1. X squared goes into x squared once. And then when I multiply 1 by all of these 3, I get x squared minus 3x plus 2, and when I subtract those, I get 0. So this one has no remainder. So the answer to this one would just be x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay? So that's dividing a polynomial by a polynomial.